Quest for the Wicked. Welcome into the Toyota Lounge, driven by your Front Range Toyota stores. Toyota, the official vehicle of DNVR, and we are right back at it. A quick flight in and a fun show for you today. Mike Bolt joins us, former keeper of the Cup, formerly of the Hockey Hall of Fame, now retired, enjoying the good life. Glad to have him on. We're going to get to Mike in just a second, but of course we got Big E, we got Rudo. Tiff is behind the cameras, and AJ back in the Rocky Mountains. Good chance you'll see an appearance from him later, but big round of applause for our boy Mike Bolt, friend of the show, friend of ours for quite some time. Boltsy, you look good, man. Retirement suits you.
Yeah, no, I'm enjoying. I'm enjoying not being on planes and in hotel rooms and playing a bit of golf. And, I'm enjoying being on the links, but my game isn't very good still.
I was just going to ask you, how's the golf game? We got to figure that out maybe. That's a question for later.
Have fun with the boys, tip a couple out there, and try my best, but it's not good.
Now, you've spent some time with Boltsy as well, too, and obviously you've spent some time around the Stanley Cup.
Oh, yeah, a couple times, and my dad was always fond of Mike, so, they had a great relationship, and there's no way you can't be happy when you're around the Stanley Cup. So, not that Mike's not a good guy. That's not what I'm saying. But you know what I'm saying. Again, my dad really enjoyed spending time with you, and you've always been great to him. And it's kind of nice to see you here today.
Yeah, well, it's good. I mean, we had a lot of fun. I got to know you obviously very well in 2001 when your dad had just won his second Stanley Cup, and hanging out with your dad. I mean, I can tell so many great stories. One of my favorite stories, we were on a bus somewhere, going somewhere, and I'm kind of in the back, Cup's kind of up in the front, and they were telling me that, that sometimes Pierre's got like this thing, he's kind of like goes off like the Tasmanian devil. And I understood this imitation of the Tasmanian devil. Like, so Pierre will get all upset, but then he'll come back in all nice afterwards. And so I heard that it was kind of a nickname, that it was Taz, and I didn't know Pierre that well. And I'm in the back of the bus, and I go, woot, woot, and I did it a lot better and louder back in 01. I'd probably have a heart attack now if I did it back then. But all of a sudden, he turns around and comes running back. He goes, what the hell was that? And I go, that was the Tasmanian devil. And he goes, do it again. He thought it was the greatest thing. And then there's also about all his practical jokes. And I still remember when we were in Vegas with all the hockey ops, they had this magic horn that apparently brought the team all great luck. And he's doing this very serious speech, and he asked me to come up and, blow the horn to start to see it on the right note. And I kind of knew Pierre had practical jokes. I'm like, come on, Pierre, what's going on? Mike, this is very serious. Like, you have to take this serious. Joe blew the horn last year and we won the Cup. We think you can blow it this year and help us to win the Cup again. I'm like, okay, and I get it. I got my full suit on, and I'm, a team player. I get up there and I blow, and I am literally covered in white powder from head to toe. I have a dark black suit on that is completely white. So we definitely had a lot of good fun with the practical jokes and everything else.
Buddy, just so you know, I saw that instrument about 5 days ago when I was packing something up in the closet, and I was like, oh, Lord. So I'm going to keep it. I know you said it there, but I'm going to bring it on the show here soon.
Oh, God.
Maybe that goes to the Hall of Fame.
It should be in the Hall of Fame.
That horn is a legend, and the amount of people that your father got over the years was quite good. I happened to witness it a lot after that, both in the minor leagues and at the level of different people that he got. And some people were just like literally had no clue. I was a little thinking something's going to happen. I wasn't wrong. Luckily, I closed my eyes. But yeah, he got me good. Again, we had fun traveling around, and 2001 was my second year on the job, and with that team too, guys like Ray Bork, Patrick Waugh, Joe Sakic, some great Hall of Famers, and that was a real fun summer.
Yeah, I mean, look, we are an Avs podcast. The Avs did win the Cup a couple of years ago. There are a couple of notorious moments on the ice. Nick Aube-Kubel putting a big dent in the base of the cup, and then later that summer, Curtis McDermott fell over with the cup. I gotta know, how bad does the damage get on the cup? What is the worst damage anyone's ever done to the thing?
Well, you're kind of talking about that 2 weeks there.
The Avs are leading the pack. Great.
I was fortunate enough to bring the cup out with Phil that year. It was the first time I'd actually been at the actual game when it's presented, and to be on the ice. was quite an honor. And I still remember, though, when it went down, when they went for the team picture, I literally put my head back and went, you got to be kidding me. And then, of course, in the bar, guys were maybe a little overserved a little bit and had zero balance, because I remember when he went down, I was right there. I remember grabbing him and going like that and getting up, and then we got it out of the gong show where the band was and got it up to the other bar. And I remember looking at it and like, oh, crap, here we go. And there were a couple little things on it. So it was a rough 2 weeks. After that, we had to sit the boys down and explain that was the Stanley Cup that they're screwing around with, smarten up a bit. And they got the message, and they understood that we got to slow it down a little bit, treat the cup a little more respect. But we had a good summer a couple of years ago too. I mean, going coast to coast and around the world with the guys was a lot of fun.
I remember we know each other pretty well, and you and I have spent a lot of time together and a lot of fun situations. But I remember looking at your face when the cup went down on the ice, and then I remember the clip from the bar, and I'm like, oh, he's not happy. Boltsy is not happy. Like he's gonna give these guys the old school like dad voice talking to you after that.
You treat the cup when you're with it every day; it becomes your baby a little bit. I know it's an object, but it's the most iconic trophy in all the sports. And as a cup keeper, our job is to kind of keep the Stanley Cup around for another 100 years. And we treat every name that's on that with respect, and we don't like seeing any damage come to it. So the guys got the message. They were just a little over fun and not thinking properly.
One of the things I always get asked, and I don't think I've ever actually asked you this question, but how does one get the honor of becoming, an employee of the Hall of Fame, but then elevated to a level where they get to spend time with the, as you said, greatest trophy in the world?
Yeah, well, for my story, I mean, I just started working at the Hockey Hall of Fame in 1995. I started in just guest services and went on to do some work in the events department, and then I started doing a little bit of travel with special projects, setting up Hall of Fame displays. And then in late 99, Phil came and asked me if I wanted to be one of the cup keepers. And I said, sure. Like, it was that simple. And 23 years later, it was one hell of a run. I mean, I never thought I'd be doing it for 23 years either. But the things that it got me to do, the places that took me around the world, from celebrities to presidents to every great winning team, and then a lot of other sports he got to open doors for, to go into baseball stadiums, football stadiums. So for a guy that's a sports fan, it was definitely a dream job that way.
Question for you. If we talk about the Avs a lot, obviously we're an Avs podcast, and I go back to 96, and I know that they've changed a little bit of the way they're engraving the names in the cup, but I don't know if you remember because I was there with him, and when Adam Deadmarch, saw his name misspelled in the Stanley Cup, was the funniest. They couldn't have been a better guy too, because he was like the perfect guy to do it to, and he was like, "Oh my God, they misspelled my name," and then but go a little bit of the process of how they, the names are put on, and obviously how it's changed. I think since Vegas, right, or whatever it is. I think they do it before they start passing the cup around.
Yeah, well, the names are submitted in by the team, and it's 52 names per year. Usually, as in the last couple of years, and it's been I like the idea how they're getting it done right away after the cup is won. The team's got to figure it out, because I think it's great for the guys to have their name. Everybody's kind of disappointed on their actual day. The name's not on it. You get guys, whatever, free agent, traded, retire, but sometimes you don't see their name on the cup for years because they're just not in the market. They're not around there when the banner's raised or whatever, because they're playing for another team or whatever they may be doing. So it's a great tradition. As far as Adam Deadmarch goes, I mean, he was the first guy to have his name. Like, there's other guys like Bob Gainey, Ted Lindsay, Maurice Richard's on there 5 different times, spelled differently. 2 of them are spelled wrong. Those are correct. So Adam Deadmarch was the first guy to ever have his name corrected on the Stanley Cup. Manny Legacy in 2002 had his name spelt wrong, and again, that was something I had to break the news to him. He couldn't believe it. I actually had to bring the cup to him to show him, but same thing. I told him, Manny, you're part of Stanley Cup trivia and lore, and we will get it fixed. So, it's good that I remember Sean Podian actually in 2001. He goes, I want my name spelled wrong. I think that would be really cool.
When you think about, and I don't know, this is probably an unfair question, and by no means give me a biased answer, but when you think about is there a moment that is paramount over any other that you can think of from your time with it? I mean, is there something that really just stands out above all else, like with the Cup and maybe with a player or a family member, or maybe it was a funny moment, maybe it was an emotional moment, maybe it was a how the heck am I here kind of thing?
Yeah, I don't think I can just pick one particular moment. I mean, I can talk about. I remember going into the Avalanche locker room in 2001 and seeing the guys in that room from Hayduk, Sakic, Waugh, Bork. I mean, we could go on the whole roster, but it was just Forsberg. I mean, I was just to be in the guy at the, so to speak, the fly on the wall. That was just awesome. Other memories, going to the White House for the first time, getting to meet the president, that never gets old. I got the pleasure of going to the White House 13 times. The other cool thing, I've been on a couple different space shuttles. In 2004, we brought the Cup to Kennedy Space Center. We had it right outside the space shuttle hatch. We couldn't bring it on the space shuttle because it was going into space in a couple of months. And I actually got to go on the shuttle, and it was just amazing. And they told me I saw more than 99% of what NASA employees get to see. And here's a guy who looks after a trophy for a living on the freaking space shuttle. I get to do it again a few years later when the Bruins won, when they were shutting down the whole the space shuttle systems. We got to go on one of the space shuttles before it got stripped and sealed for eternity. We actually had the Cup up in the flight deck of the space shuttle. And man, that was just incredible to see the technology. Again, I'm not a very bright person as I looked after a trophy for a living, but I've never felt dumber that day being in the space shuttle. That was a really cool one. And then Afghanistan, being to go and bring the Stanley Cup over to the troops during a very difficult time, being interactive with both the U.S. and Canadian troops over there. But it was a big NATO base. There were a lot of other countries represented. I remember the Czechs were there, and they were coming up and checking out some of the players' names on the Cup, the Swedes. So being in Afghanistan was definitely one of my most memorable things that I was glad that I got to be a part of with the Stanley Cup.
Yeah.
I'm sure that you've had a ton of amazing moments that maybe you can or can't tell us with the Cup, but one, Chicago, 2015. Allegedly, you guys were going 100 miles an hour down the road to try and get that Cup to the building in time.
Yeah.
It was very late to the building.
That's right.
Traffic allegedly the problem there?
No, roads flooded out. And the tradition was, it wasn't Game 7, and usually roll in quietly during the first period, and they left the hotel room when they were supposed to, and it literally roads. It was a massive thunderstorm and downpour, and roads were literally washed out, flooded out. We had to call in the state police, and they were having trouble getting us there because that's how bad the roads were. So, that was one of those crazy moments. But obviously, at the end of the day, Phil and Craig did get it there and got it on the ice. And I wasn't there. I was at home watching it on TV. But I remember texting him going, the A-team would never let this happen. Not knowing what the story was. I was just chirping. I'm just giving it to him, and he called me about 15 minutes after the Cup was presented, and he told me the whole story about how they got trapped.
Too good. Boltsy, Mike Bolt, former keeper of the Cup, former Hall of Fame employee. We're going to keep him hanging around with us for a little bit longer here. Stick with us here, Boltsy. But I don't know if you know this, and Mike, you might know this, but Coach Prime wants you to help. Well, he wants to help you and help yourself get other Coloradans to be the healthiest selves as the Chief Motivation Officer of UC Health's Ready, Set, Go challenge. The goal of the challenge is to get Colorado back to its rightful place as the healthiest state. And part of that challenge is mindfulness. So Mindfulness Prime is here to encourage you to remember to chill out and relax and find things that you can do to level yourself off. I mean, we all have particularly stressful days. Eric, you know that. Rudo, you guys have been there. We had a busy week.
It was a long
first day in
weekend.
LA.
Yeah.
It was a little stressful, but we were able to chill at the end, and maybe that's just hanging out with your friends, or maybe it's going for a walk, or maybe it's working out. But make sure you're taking care of yourself so that you can take care of other people. And sometimes it's just 20 minutes a day. Disconnect from all the craziness and the stress and try to find a way to get back to being healthy. If you want to join UC Health's Ready, Set, Go challenge, click the link in the show notes or go to uchealth.org/Ready, Set, Go.
Well, it's not too often that the roads get flooded here, but if you need a vehicle that's ready for those type of elements, make sure you're getting yourself into a Toyota. They've got 17 all-wheel drive vehicles that you can choose from, whether it be the big vehicles like a truck or an SUV with the Tundra or the RAV4. You can also get yourself into a sedan like the Corolla, 16 different hybrid vehicles if you want to be eco-conscious with your next car. Whatever it might be, Toyota has you covered. So head on over to one of your local Front Range Toyota dealerships. Make sure you get in with the official vehicle of DNVR and the official vehicle of the Colorado Avalanche at AutoNation Toyota, Arapahoe and Centennial, Corwin Toyota and Boulder, Groove Toyota and Littleton, Mountain States Toyota in Denver, Stevenson Toyota East in Aurora, and Stevenson Toyota West in Lakewood. Again, the official vehicle of the Colorado Avalanche is Toyota.
I'm always so proud of you when you do that so effortlessly and effectively, just like it's a voiceover for a TV commercial.
Just don't go look at the first 20 times I had to do it, and then so it feels pretty good.
You're learning. Rudo E. Gizmo with you. AJ's coming on later. He's back. We got Tiffany working the dials, and of course, a good dear friend of ours, Mike Bolt, former Hockey Hall of Fame employee and keeper of the cup, join us for a little longer here. I think my next question is, what's the best country you think you've visited, or the country where you were kind of, a little bit taken back by on how awesome it was that maybe you didn't think about before?
Slovenia with Kopitar.
That was a fun trip.
Yeah, I mean, great guy, great country, great food, good beer. Yeah, probably that was. I remember when he broke into the league, and obviously when he broke in, I knew where he was from. Looked it up and went, "Oh, that'd be really cool." But when he got in there, the Kings weren't very good, so I never thought it was going to ever happen. And now I've had the pleasure of going over there with the Kopitar family twice, and Slovenia is one of my favorite places. But again, getting to see the world is awesome. I mean, I love the Czech Republic. I love Sweden. I love Finland. Switzerland was great. I mean, I've been to so many places that they're all kind of really neat and cool in their own way. So that was one of the great things about the job. And U.S. and Canada, I mean, I covered every inch of both countries for sure.
I did enjoy that Slovenia trip. I was lucky enough to be along for that one. And I still, on my shelf in my living room, have that photo of you, me, Phil, Kopi, and his brother standing there with the mountains in the backdrop and the cup there. And I remember just thinking, there are not very many moments in my life where I'm like, how the hell did I get here? But that was definitely one of those moments.
Yeah, I mean, that castle and Lake Blood and everything like that, just so beautiful.
I got one for you, because we, here on this show, we always talk, and again, we lived it this weekend at the Rookie Face-Off in L.A., for that little rookie tournament with 7 teams there. We always talk about the small circle that the hockey circle is, right? And what I want to touch on is, I saw you at the Hall of Fame in November there, and I remember seeing Charlotte. I was with Charlotte Graham, Avalanche great. Don't forget, Avalanche great. You know that. And I was like, I just saw Mike, and remember I sat with you for like 15 minutes, and she dropped everything. And where's Mike? I got to talk to Mike. So my point is, it's amazing the connections that you made over your lifetime, again, because of that trophy, yes, but also the opportunities that were presented to you. So do you look back at those and say, man, again, kind of like Gizmo, how did I get here? You know what I mean? Where I made all those connections, and they'll stay with you for the rest of your life.
Oh, Eric, you nailed it. I mean, that's the greatest thing about our sport is the people. So many great people in all the different markets, and even in the minor, like just getting to meet so many awesome people. And I could sit there and name drop to people we've all heard of, to people that you've never heard of, but are just awesome people. And that's the hardest part about the job that I've walking away from, is all the people that I don't get to cross paths with on a day to weekly, yearly basis, if you know what I mean. Because, I mean, the hockey world was small, and you did cross paths quite a few times throughout a season. And that part I will miss. A lot of great people, and you couldn't have nailed it better with Charlotte Graham. I mean, she comes from the first family of hockey, as I call them, with her son winning the Stanley Cup also.
That's right.
Well, she won it before he did, but and then of course Ron, the great goaltender in the NHL, and then Jason, of course, just a lovely family.
I don't know if I'm revealing a little bit of the magic here, but a lot of people don't know that there are at least 3 versions of the Stanley Cup. one at the Hockey Hall of Fame, one for travel, and one they call the Show Cup. Are you guys in charge of all three of those, or do you just travel with one of them?
Yeah, so I mean, there's the original bowl that's in the vault. If you've been to the Hockey Hall of Fame, the Great Hall, and that's in a vault, and that came off the presentation trophy, the presentation cup, as we call it, and that's the one that Eric's been in Eric's house, and you guys have seen around Colorado. We only travel with the official one, the one that's on display at the Hall of Fame. Like for example, the Florida Panthers have the official Stanley Cup. We call it the presentation. That is down in Florida. So the original bowl sits at the Hockey Hall of Fame, and then there's a second version, for a better word, that is a replica of the presentation Stanley Cup.
I think the history of it is, and the tradition is what really kind of sort of always impresses me about it. And I think the other cool thing is that you have all of that inherent knowledge, and you get a lot of people ask you questions. I've been to a lot of different events with you, and kids are coming up or people coming up, and everybody's got a question. But I think it's important for people to understand that you have a deep knowledge of the history and tradition of that cup, and you're able to really answer just about any question on it at any point.
Yeah, I mean, when you're around it that much, you get to know the history. I used to carry I knew stuff before I started traveling with it because I worked at the Hall of Fame, but I really brushed up on my knowledge for the first couple of years. I carried a few books with me. If a question was presented to me that I couldn't answer, I'd at least know how to look it up before the internet, of course. But after that, I didn't need the books. Getting phone calls from Jeffrey to help him out with a couple of questions. I thought that was really cool. And then, the other thing I treated with the questions, there was times that I'd hear the same question 200 to 300 times a day. And I always treated it like the first time I heard it because they were good questions. So I love when our fans are asking questions and curious about the history of the cup, because there's no other trophy like it in pro sports. And we're lucky to have something so iconic.
There is an alleged story of the very early days of the cup that at one point the Montreal Wanderers drop-kicked it into a river. Is that true?
Yes, it is. 1907, Montreal Wanderers had just won the Stanley Cup, and the story goes that they were walking along the Rideau Canal up in Ottawa, and they were celebrating. The joke was that let's see if you could drop kick it over the canal, which the canal is pretty big, so it apparently went about 10 feet out, kind of landed in the slushy ice, and the coach went and fetched it out in the morning, is the way I've heard the story.
There.
I wasn't looking after the cup in 1907, so.
You weren't?
I came on in 1910 there, Nick.
Yeah, the other couple of ones that I've heard, I know there were some nervous moments only because I was there for this one. There were some nervous moments in Slovenia because the cup was on at the castle when we went across Lake Blood to the castle, and Kopi literally had it on the ledge, and it was a solid 100, 150 foot fall. You and Phil were nearby. It was early in the day, so I think everybody had a hand, but
yeah, I mean, he knew. We gave him a little kind of just obviously get the awesome picture, but if that thing goes over, none of us are going back to North America. We'd be the three most hated guys in the world, but at least in the hockey world anyways. But yeah, I wasn't that nervous about that one. There are times you get very nervous, but that wasn't really one of them. I remember climbing up those stairs. That was hard.
Oof. I don't remember. In the middle of Lake Bled, there's this island, and there's a church on top of the island, but it is a significant flight of stairs that you have to get up in order to get to this church at the top of the hill. Then you ring the bell. But it was pretty amazing. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah. Bluest lake I've ever been on too.
I love moments. Of course, here in Denver, the 01, as you said, you were in there, but the Joe to Ray, you see those images, and it lasts forever.
Eric, I'm sorry, I can't hear anything. I'm sorry, bud.
I'm good now. Sorry, she had muted me. She can't stand me, Tiff. God, she's like, can you shush his mouth? No, I was saying, like in 01, the Ray Bork, everybody, that image is just so amazing, right? Joel gives it to Ray, and it's funny because I've talked to Ray, and he was telling me the story about how they were going to do it and all that kind of stuff. But there are moments that live forever. You see it in every playoffs, right? The commercials about, you see those moments, and then the one thing we are an Avalanche podcast now, but Scotty Bowman putting on the skates, and even though we don't like the Red Wings, you know what I mean, but unbelievable moments. He's lifting that cup, and it just brings a lot of memories and lasting memories, and especially here in Denver. I got a quick question to ask you about this. Speaking of memories, this year, without putting you on the spot, because I don't want to put you on the spot, do you think the Avalanche have a top 5 chance to be lifting that thing in the spring to have new memories?
Well, you know what, Eric? I can give you a better answer than I would have given you a few years ago. The answer is yes. I like Colorado's chances. Now, if I was still working, my answer would have been, really, to be honest with you, it's the team that gets the 16 wins first. But look, I like the Avs. Always got a special place for them. But being the hockey fan, I hope the Avs and Leafs meet in the Stanley Cup final. That's what I'd like to see. So I'm a Leaf fan, and I'm hoping for the Leafs to do well this year too. So.
Not being politically correct with my question about top five, but I'm glad that you can give an honest answer now. So it's awesome. Hopefully we get to live it.
23. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead, sir.
23 years as a keeper. Was there ever a time you didn't know where the cup was, or maybe it was lost for a minute?
Yeah. Maybe not totally not where it was. But it's not where it was supposed to be. You get off of an airplane and it's either in the city you just left, or it got put on another airplane and went to somewhere else. And myself, Phil, and any of the guys that have traveled with the Cup could tell you at least a few stories about the wonderful world of air travel. And there is nothing worse than having to explain to a player or whoever's major Cup day, or even whatever the event is during the season, that unfortunately we're not making it because the Cup is not here. It's like, especially for a player's Cup day, it's like almost telling them there's a death in the family, and we end up making it up to them somewhere down the road, but it's not quite the same thing. We try everything in our power to get it on the plane, but those are probably one of the more stressful moments, and you got to be patient, because it's you just got to try and get it back in your hands as quickly as possible. And there's a lot of interesting stories with the airlines over the years for sure about that.
I remember one with Steven Kampfer. He had won it with the Boston Bruins, and Howie was the keeper for that particular day. And it had flown from Boston that morning to Michigan, where Kampfer's from, and he was having his Cup party. And he had it in the morning. I think he golfed with it. I think he took it to the University of Michigan, where he played. And then it had to get on a private jet and fly back to Boston so that one of the owner's horses could jump over the Cup. And then it went back on a private jet back to Detroit, where it made like this wild police escort trip so that it could get to Kampfer for his Cup party. I was like, what are we doing?
Oh, again, there's so many stories about that. I remember, one particular trip. I woke up in Nashville at 4 a.m, got an early flight out, had to fly through Detroit, go to Philadelphia, work the Flyers Wives Carnival. And then I had to go back to the airport from Philly to Chicago. There was a plane waiting me, a private plane, but it wasn't a nice plane anyways. And then I had to fly into the mountains and then drive through a snowstorm. I had been up for 36 hours by the time I got to my destination because of the bad day of air travel. And that was an experience and a half, 36 hours straight up before I went from one bed to another.
We're going to keep you for just a few more minutes. I think the guys have one or two more questions, but we're going to take another quick break here. And we're going to talk about Rugged Road. Rugged Road, dedicated to creating innovative and durable outdoor gear for adventures, who demand the best. And their products are designed with the highest quality materials and craftsmanship, ensuring that they perform in the toughest, most gnarly conditions out there. So whether it's land or water, Rugged Road gear is built to accompany you on every single adventure. They float, they're lightweight, they're durable, and if you really want to keep everything super cold and super safe and have it there with you, there is no better option than Rugged Road. They are your go-to, so make sure you go to them when you go on your adventure.
Rugged Road, great for outdoor people. I am an indoor person. And if you're going to live indoors, you should make sure you keep your floors to the best. Make sure you get with Empire today to get your floors, whether it be hardwood, whether it be carpet, whether it be tile. Empire today has you covered with the best quality products. A lot of other companies, they do all the cheap stuff.
Yeah.
They put that in their catalog. It's going to break after a couple of years. Our old flooring here in the studio did that. Then we went with Empire today. We got the better flooring, and now it's been perfect. So get with Empire today to get the best products possible. You can also get $350 off your new floors when you use code DNVR, or you go to empiretoday.com/DNVR. Right now, you can get a free in-home estimate. You can also see what the floors look like just straight from home. Go online to Empire Today. They have a 3D projector. You measure out your room, and they'll show you what the floors look like right in there. So call 1-800-588-2300 Empire Today.
So good at that jingle. We got Bolty for just a few more minutes here. We talked about the Avs, and you've been around a few of their wins before. Do you have a particular moment? I mean, the Tasmanian Devil story is epic, but was there a maybe emotional moment there, especially in the early part of it, that you can remember that maybe stuck out in your mind?
Well, the presentation with the way Joe Sakic didn't even hoist the Stanley Cup in the way. I mean, just like Ray's kid on the ice, I had tears in my eyes. That was one of the coolest things ever for the way Sakic handled it. I mean, nobody would have blamed Joe to hoist it first and then hand it to him. Joe wanted him to hoist it first. That was an emotional moment. I still remember Sean Podine. Remember number 25 wore his gear for 25 hours after they won the Stanley Cup. That was quite the moment. And I remember being in the trainer's room when the gear came in, and the smell of the bag that his wife had brought in was something else. Sweat and booze all into that gear there was quite something. Even actually Sean Podine's day, I remember too. We did almost 26 stops in one day. I was never so tired at the end of the day. It was like 15 minutes here, 20 minutes here, half an hour here, but he wanted to share with as many people in Minnesota, both in Minneapolis and in Rochester.
And you talked about race kids. So we've had Ryan on the show. So I always look at it now. I'm like, now he's married, got kids. It's amazing how time flies. But you're right. That's why I was saying earlier, those memories and those pictures in your head last forever. So I'm glad you brought that up. But go ahead, Rudo. I know you're going to ask something.
About the age thing, I just want to say about the age thing. I was doing Tim Taylor's party in 2004, and his kids were playing with their little toys on the front lawn, like dump trucks and yada yada. And they run into his daughter at a Stanley Cup party quite a few years later, and she's chugging beers. So yeah, I know what you're saying about feeling old after a while.
It's crazy.
Last question from me here. The Stanley Cup is widely considered the greatest trophy in sports. For you personally, what about it makes it better than all the other ones?
I think the size, the fact that your name is on it, that it's enshrined for history, and unlike a lot of the other major trophies, you can't drink out of it and you can't eat out of it. And the other trophies just don't have the same presence. But I think it's really the history, the fact that you're touching the same thing that you're idol that won it back when you were a kid watching hockey, and then you get to do it, and you're lifting the exact same trophy that they got to lift and spend a day with it and have a sip of beer or champagne or whatever your beverage of choice is out of the exact same Stanley Cup that they did. So I think that's what's really neat about it. And the fact that it's never really owned, it's passed around and enjoyed. And I think, and then the adventures it has. I mean, we were talking about some of the things that I got to do. I mean, the Stanley Cup has had more adventures than most people ever will have.
There is just something about it too. I mean, I have been very blessed and lucky to be around that thing more than I ever should. That's for darn sure. But I mean, every time that case opens and that thing comes out, it's the same feeling as the first time I saw it. It's a heavy feeling when you're around that thing. It's just incredible. It's incredible.
I never got old, ever got tired of opening that box and pulling out that beautiful trophy. I never got tired of looking at it. I love cleaning it. And again, for 23 years, I got to look at it almost every day, and it never got old.
Baldy, I can't thank you enough for coming on, man. I miss you. I can't wait to see you soon. And you're a great friend, and we love you, brother.
Guys, thanks a lot. Go Avs, and all the best, and have a great season. Can't wait to see you guys.
Appreciate you.
All right, Bolty, thanks a million. Mike Bolt, former keeper of the cup, former Hockey Hall of Fame employee. I mean, dude, there are so many other stories that I could tell you that I can't say out loud, but that I would love to. But I mean, have you been around it much? Have you gotten like when the Avs won it?
Over at Breckenridge Brewery, I've been around it multiple times as a kid with their like traveling stuff as well. So it's always amazing. But hey, who knows? Maybe one day soon it'll end up at the DNVR bar. Who's to say?
I'll tell you what, we could probably make that happen. So, but you heard me. I mean, there's a good chance that he's got the Avs in a real good spot.
Yeah, I know.
For the
That's what I'm saying. It's looking good. I'll take an Avs Leafs final any day. Honestly, Avs plus anyone, I'll take in the final. But look. Beyond that, maybe one day we'll do a Stanley Cup at the DNVR bar event. But in the immediate, guess what? We have some takeovers of Ball Arena to help the Avs get into those playoffs and have a chance at the Cup this year. Our first one, November 15th against the Washington Capitals. If you want to come watch a hockey game with us, with Eric Lacroix, some special guests that might be coming to some of those things that played a little bit of hockey too, you can get in with us. It's not only go to the game with us, it's also a party bus. You come to the bar before the game, you get to take a bus to the arena, which includes free beer. Then you get a bus ride back from the arena, which includes free beer. And then you're at the bar where you can have more, not free beer, but more beer. So it's a pretty sweet event. Of course, tickets are limited. So make sure you head over to thednvr.com today. Go to our event section and get your tickets for the takeover. We also do have a few bus-only tickets. If you already have a ticket to the game, you can come ride on the bus with us. So,
and it's always a ton of fun to just be around fans, and especially because we know the Avs are going to be good this year. We know we're going to be doing. It's going to be a fun atmosphere. It's going to be a cool environment. And by the way, I love the DNVR bar on Colfax.
Oh, it's always popping.
I have been spending a significant amount of time here lately. The TVs are great. The staff is great. The food is incredible. I've had way too many grilled cheeses, but I'll tell you something right now. If you are looking for a good place to hang, this is definitely at the top of my list. Gotta
be the place to come hang out, especially not just for Avs games, but Nuggets. As bad as the Broncos are, you can come here and drink away some of your Broncos games. Maybe that's the action on the Broncos. But there's going to be a lot of super awesome sports, and I can't wait to get this place packed for an Avs game again. So,
and just to button up our Stanley Cup conversation, do you have? You've obviously it's going to be an Avs moment, but do you have a favorite Avs Stanley Cup moment from either when you were covering them or even in the early years that just sort of kind of hit you or really endeared itself to you?
I mean, Bolt said it. The Ray Bork Cup moment, I believe, is maybe one of the greatest moments in all of sports, not just hockey. So it's pretty darn tough to top that. Of course, the guy we're about to have back on the show here and I got to watch them win the 22 Cup right here in this seat. So that was a very special moment in my life, too.
Well, nice segue, as always. And with that, we bring back AJ. We told you he was still around with us, and these guys are going to cuddle on the couch over there. But,
my man.
Speaking of emotional moments.
That was my moment, Rudo. So to have you have it at number 2, I'll take it.
What's up, AJ? Welcome back.
Yeah, thank you. It's weird to be back. It's weird to feel like I've done this 1,000 times, but it still feels kind of like the first time, the lights and the anxiety and all
You're
that.
You're sitting over there on the couch instead of over here.
That is definitely weird. It is definitely weird to be over here. So
with my buddy.
That's awesome. Rookie camp just wrapped up. You weren't there with us on that, but let's start there, pal. What were your initial takeaways from that, from what you saw from 30,000 feet?
Here comes the hater.
Be yourself.
Wow.
Be yourself.
Wow. It's been like 2 minutes and I'm getting called a hater, man. Not even by the people, but by my own homie. It's accurate. I would be the hater. I'm the one that always is like, hey, look, relative to the other Avs prospects, obviously Cal Ritchie looks ready, but how could he not? It's such a weak group of prospects in terms of their NHL readiness right now.
Yeah.
There are some guys in there that I like that might be good depth guys, but if Cal Ritchie isn't standing out, then we know immediately he's not ready. So it's put him in a position to, he's the number one storyline going into training camp this weekend. It was that strong of a performance, and that's great. But, I texted Eric during the game yesterday and just said I'm worried about the pace. the size looks good. He looks like he belongs physically, but the pace, the Avs play at a different level, and his hockey IQ, he's going to have to do the old Tyler Toffoli. He plays fast because he doesn't skate that fast. And I'm curious. I'm just curious to see how that fits in. We see with Casey Middlestat what that looks like. It can be done.
Yeah.
But for a 19-year-old that is not adjusted to NHL speed, Casey Middlestat, it took him how many years for him to figure it out in the NHL? Cal Ritchie's still 19.
And he's already bigger than Casey Middlestat, for the record.
Yes, noticeably bigger. But that's the storyline for me going into training camp is how does Cal Ritchie handle Avalanche pace more than anything else?
Just for the record, you texted that to E. He showed it to me, and 45 seconds later, Ritchie sets up Steinberg for a goal. So.
Yeah, it was pretty funny timing. I was like, some things never change. I bring out the hater energy, and whoever it is that's on the receiving end was like, oh?
I'm not going to throw Rudo under the bus, but he says, well, you text him now. Ask him what he thinks now.
I think the one thing about...
I think the same thing.
I think the one thing about Ritchie and his pace, though, is that he hasn't had to necessarily play at NHL pace. And the games at the rookie face-off were sluggish. I mean, I forget, was it the first game or the second game? Way too many whistles. I'm like, you can't get these guys aren't getting into any kind of a flow. So for me, I think that the player that he is intellectually and his hockey IQ, that's there. The body's there. I think that he's smart enough and athletic enough that the minute he gets a couple of games under his belt with the big boys, he's going to be like, oh, okay, I gotta change gears. Like I gotta get to this gear, and I think hopefully we see that out of him this week.
Yeah, and I know that he's been on the ice with some of those guys already this summer leading up to it, but day one of training camp when he's actually doing a drill next to whoever he's going to play with, which is going to be storyline number one. Who do they saddle him with in that lineup? Because that gives us an initial thought of where they want to see him first.
Yeah.
They've had all summer to think about it, so that's their number one choice. But, he's going to get on the ice, and it's going to be Mikko Rantanen and Nathan McKinnon and Cale Makar. These guys are going to be on and it's going to be like, oh, this is not the rookie face-off where I'm going up against the B-tier San Jose Sharks prospects, right? Like, it's such a different animal.
Well, what happens when the inevitable, this happens every single year, they get 2 minutes into the first drill, Bednar blows the whistle and yells at all of them for more pace.
Yeah.
What happens then?
Yeah. Yeah, more pace. That's what happens. Usually that's what happens. I will always remember Andre Burakovsky's first 10 minutes on the ice as an Av in his first training camp. Where Nathan McKinnon stopped the drill and screamed at him and just undressed him and was like, you need to figure it out. Now, McKinnon has since calmed down, but there is always that welcome to the NHL / Colorado moment for the new guys where, that these guys play fast, but how do they play fast? It's because they practice fast every single day. And to see the new guys get ingratiated into that culture is always it's always fun to watch because it's always bumpy.
Was it Middlestat last year? After a few days, he's like, "Oh, those guys practice fast here." I'm trying to remember. It was one of those
probably.
Guys. I think
at the start of the year it was Druin, but
was it? No, I thought it was Casey.
I mean, he didn't.
But it was one of those new guys.
If you're talking about trade deadline, then it was probably Casey.
Deadline. He's like, oh boy. And then everybody was taking that as a shot at the Buffalo Sabres or whatever. But it's not. It's the environment. Right. It's the culture. It's the and then you're right. You can skate all summer. You can train all summer. You can do everything you want all summer. You get to that first day of training camp and you're like, oh boy. Because now it's real. The whistle sounds differently than it does today at a captain's practice or whatever they're out there with. So it's different. And then the first preseason game, it's different because it's not 3-on-3 that you've been playing the last few weeks. It's different. So the pace goes up, and we all know those preseason games, because of the fact that those lineups aren't really stacked, there's a big difference between that first opening night game.
Yeah, the first preseason game is fun because people are watching, but it's not good hockey.
So to go back to Cal, so he's going to have to pass those tests. That's what he's doing. He's doing the exams. Like this weekend, he passed the exam. Now he's going to have to pass it this week of those practices with Pace and the McKinnons, and then it's going to be the preseason games, and then it's going to be, cross your fingers, who knows? Time will tell if he's ready to be there on opening night. Time will, or his play will tell, time will tell, and then the organization's plan, or what are the other, I tell you about Ryan O'Reilly all the time.
Yeah.
What are the other options? You know what I mean? So we had none for Ryan, and that's why Ryan stuck. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
With all the reasons. I mean, he deserved it too. That's not what I'm trying to say. But you have to weigh in all that stuff and listen to our show and then figure out, what's best for him.
Biggie, we got AJ back, Rudo and Gizmo with you. We're going to talk about main camp in just a sec. All right, so training camp starts. It gets real. Media day tomorrow, and then we're right into the crux of it. There's already some storylines kind of percolating around. AJ coming in with some heat, as we saw him when we walked into the studio here today. Obviously, we're going to keep an eye on Cal Ritchie, see who he's paired up with. That's storyline number one. Storyline number two, though, is no eyes nor skating yet from Oliver Shillington.
Yeah, where's Oliver? Right now, it's an ongoing question. Just has not been seen in any of the practices. The organization expected him to be in town by now. Has not shown up yet. It may be entirely unfair for us to think that this is a storyline at the moment, but until we see Oliver Shillington actually on the ice or in media day tomorrow, it's a fair question to just wonder what's going on there. It could be visa issues, but this is also a guy who missed a substantial amount of time. Because he was dealing with mental health issues, his battles with anxiety. It's just something that at the moment I'm keeping an eye on. It's, it may be a complete non-story, but until we have a definitive answer as to where Oliver Shillington is, I want to know.
And that's the hope, right? That it's a visa thing. And
Totally.
and these things do happen like that sometimes, especially for a player who was playing in Canada and now has to move to the U.S. But it is worth
It's
noting.
a little different, but do you remember how long it took Arturi Lehkonen to play his
it was
first
like
game for
2
the Avs?
weeks.
Yeah.
And that's mid-season, like you
Yeah,
said.
it's a touch different, but also not so.
But at the same time, you look at the golf tournament event that they had the other day, and a lot of the injured guys, Gabe Landeskog is there. Some of these other guys, Logan O'Connor was there, and he was rehabbing all off season. So if it isn't the visa thing, there are some questions.
Yeah, it is. He's a guy that where does he fit into the roster is one of, that like battle for
Yep.
the bottom pairing and kind of positioning in that defensive rotation is going to be one of our favorite storylines all training camp.
Yep.
But at least until we see Shillington, I'm at least asking the question of where is he?
Yep.
And listen, maybe if he's not there tomorrow, maybe you'll know, or maybe it'll be the speak around, upper body injury, flu-like symptoms type stuff.
He's sick.
So we'll see. We'll see what comes out of that. I'll throw it to Eric. What is the big thing you're looking for coming out of or going into training camp, pal?
You know what? I'll put my management cap on, not players, because management's better. It's the competition. I think that there truly are some competition this year. There truly are some stuff at the fourth line center. There truly is some competition on the back end. We all know that only 6 can dress, right, or 7, depending on. Even though I don't think Bednar and Pratt.
The
are
Sharks
big
at the
on
rookie faceoff dressed 8, buddy,
Yeah,
so you
they
can do
just
whatever
think,
you
which is rare. So I'm looking
And
for
one.
the internal competition. I look for that every year. I look for who rises to the challenge, who rises to the fact that they're enjoying every minute of being in that Cal Ritchie. You know what I mean? How are you gonna live that moment? How are you gonna fare? How are you gonna quickly pick up on those drills, on those situations? And I like that. I live for that. I wish there was a little bit more scrimmage. You know what I mean? Like that's just my view. You know what I mean? Because I like to watch scrimmages in training camp. I don't know why. Call me old school. Still, a lot of teams do it. These guys don't do it much. I don't see them changing much this year again. Hey, it's worked. Those guys are in the playoffs every year. I am not, challenging Bednar and Prater and Ray's, Ray Bennett's. A lot of work goes into it. Coaching in the National Hockey League, I tell you, those guys, they plan, they see, they hope, for many situations, and it starts tomorrow for them. So I think that they're excited. They were there at the rookie face-off, I think, just for a little bit. They had to get back for the golf tournament, but you can tell that they're ready to go. We go back again. I'm not putting pressure. We talked about it all summer. 96-01, right? Avalanche 1.0. You are right now in Avalanche 2.0. You go to 22 to 27, 28. How many are we going to see? How many are we going to see? You know what I mean? I'm talking about championships. So, they've gotten one. They came up short the last two, a lot like, anywhere from 97 to 2000, right? Especially thinking of Dallas in 99 and 2000, right? So now it's where are they at, and who's gonna rise to the occasion, and who's gonna be one of those guys that, well, you know what, I didn't expect that. You know what I mean? And that's what I like about training camps. This year, there seems to be some open mindedness, maybe, because we talked about it all summer with Gabe and Val and situations, even Lekanen now, that sounds like, who knows. But so I think it's going to be interesting to see the internal competition, and that's what I'm looking forward to.
Yeah, I would say more specifically for me, I think the battles are going to be a lot more intense in the bottom six. But the thing I'm most curious about is who earns that top six spot in the forward core with no Lekanen. There is a wing spot available there. Yeah, two, sure. But I have an idea of who's going to end up in one of those spots more than someone else, maybe. But that's what we'll talk about as we get into training camp. And I'm sure tomorrow when we really dig into those battles and preview some of those things. But you don't earn any of those spots on day one of training camp. I'll put it to you that way. There might be guys who lead the race. There might be guys who have an inside advantage. But you have to go through the next 2 weeks and fully earn that spot to have it on opening night.
Giz, you have not spent the last 10 years eating, sleeping, breathing Colorado Avalanche hockey the way that we have.
Yes, sir.
10 years is probably generous at this point. What are your early impressions here of the last like week or so since guys started getting back on the ice and you started being around the organization every day again?
Yeah, I mean, I've known, living in Colorado since 2014, I've certainly gotten to know what the organization is.
Yeah.
And being around the NHL for the last 9, I mean, guys that come in and out, and then they talk, right? And I know guys that have obviously played here, and it's always glowing, right? You hear words like first class and great culture, and anytime you hear words like that, you're kind of like, wow. And the only, the one organization that I was with that stood out to me that a lot of people do compare it to is the Chicago Blackhawks in the early years, when it was the family really taking care of everybody and you really felt like you were a part of it. And I'm getting that sense right away. I'm kind of on a crash course of meeting a bunch of people and the staff, but I mean, I had a wonderful weekend with Luke, the media relations gentleman who came over from Arizona. He was fantastic and incredibly accommodating. And clearly Brendan and Jared, they have a real good team in place to do that. I had a real enjoyable conversation with Coach and with Sack, and I'm looking forward to that. And then even all the way down to, just getting a taste of their staff in general. I mean, Schneeks was amazing. I'm looking forward to working with him this year up with the Eagles. We headed off and are actually playing golf this week.
Nice.
And I think for me, it just, Wilsey, for me, what exudes from this organization is that they care. Like, they really care and they want it to be the best, but they also care on a personal level. So I'm excited about it. I mean, I can't wait. I'm very pumped that, a good friend of mine, Calvin DeHaan, just got traded here in July. So it'll be nice to be bouncing around in a locker room with him again and just sort of watching this team that I think is on the cusp of winning another cup give it a go.
As a longtime Calvin DeHaan guy.
Yes. I love it. I absolutely love it.
Finally.
I knew Calvin. I wasn't covering him. I knew Calvin when he was playing in the Carolina organization.
Oh, wow.
One of my good friends is there. And then he got moved to Chicago, and I ended up in Chicago, and we were together with the Blackhawks for a few years, and it was fun. And as soon as he got traded here, I actually kind of got the text before it was official, and he's like, "You're still in Denver, right?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm in Denver." He's like, "I'm coming in, Gizmo." And I was like, "Oh, let's go." So looking forward to catching up with him too.
Great. So we just have to have Calvin on the pod now.
Calvin will be on the pod multiple times.
I
trust
imagine
me.
probably in the next couple of days.
Probably in the next couple of days, we'll have Calvin right away, 100%.
I'm excited for that part too.
Can't
Just kind of a new look Avalanche beat that we have. Different responsibilities. Obviously, I'm not going to be here every day, so Giz, having you on board. I'm excited for all of that, just to see how we also grow with the coverage and with the team this year.
Well, and I'm excited for the coverage. I mean, I think a great example of that, and you haven't even all seen everything that we've accomplished in Los Angeles yet. We've been rolling it out. We're going to be rolling it out for a few more days still.
Yep.
But that was fun, just being back in the building and getting a chance to work with everybody. We've been having a ton of fun. Obviously, it's great seeing you again in person, but just going back and forth about some of the writing stuff and getting up to speed on that. It's going to be a ton of fun. I'm truthfully very excited to be here.
So you want to do plus minus now? Or?
I think I'm going to need a whiskey for that, it sounds like. Or that entire bucket, of course, which I'm happy to give it a go, and then we can talk about plus minus.
It's bad.
I'm interested about that. I'm very interested to hear your dive in on plus minus.
Hey, I had a clause in my contract back then, so it was good. I'd still like it. It's good.
The plus minus.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
We all did. Like,
you win some green jackets in your career?
No, I did. I look it up. Second, 96, 97 season. I had to finish top 3 to get a bonus. I finished second. Footy beat me on the last game. Like, I think he got a whatever. Like
generous plus on there.
Plus minus, and he got me by 1 or 2. Look it up.
Accidentally making my point before
That's
I had
what
to
I was
start.
saying. That's what I was saying.
Right.
I didn't want to say it, and I was sick of myself.
Now I see where you're going with this.
I was
Now
thinking as I was
I see where.
talking, I was
Okay,
like-
all right. Now I see where the plus minus argument is going to happen.
Yeah.
Okay, it's clear to me now, and I will acquiesce a bit to that because I do see. I know what you're going to say. And this conversation is going to go better than I thought, actually, when it comes to the plus minus. We are kind of coming to the end of our show today. Kind of flew by, but what I do want to get from you guys is, what do we think outside potential surprises or whoa moments might be from training camp? Do you have one of those where you're thinking, well, if this happens, it'll be a shocker? Are there any of those lingering in your minds? I'll get one from each of you.
I'll take
Put you
a
on
little
the
bit of a
spot,
different
sorry.
angle on this.
Okay.
I think I'd be a little bit surprised if Mikko Rantanen signs before the start of this season at this point. I know there's been some talk about how close he is, and maybe it gets done, but especially knowing what Mikko did last time with his contract, especially knowing the type of player he's capable of being, seeing some of the contracts that were signed this offseason, maybe he bets on himself a little bit and gets that contract done later in the year or even after the year is done. I think I'm not worried about him going to free agency or anything. I'm just not sure he gets it done this offseason.
We don't really have time, but why bet on yourself? What more is he going to do this year that he hasn't already done?
I mean, if he
He has a 50-goal season under his belt, and he has back-to-back 100-point seasons. There's no bet on himself that's going to change that math.
puts up 130.
Then he goes from 12 to 12.6, you know? Like,
I'll take it. I'll take the 0.6.
okay. Me too.
We'll split it.
Yeah, we'll split it up. We'll put it in the yacht fund.
Yacht fun. And by the way, it is a little bit of news. We don't need to talk about it because I want to get to Eric's. But unless you're living under an NHL rock, you do know that Sidney Crosby signed his contract, and he did it in incredible human fashion by signing again for $8.7 a year. He's probably leaving $50 million on the table over the course of his career, but he's a good guy, and I loved his quote about you can't put a price on being in a place that makes you feel all the warm and fuzzies with the teammates that you're doing it with. So, Sidney Crosby, you are a good man.
I think he put a price on it.
He
It was
did,
just
well, I guess
consistently
he
the
did put
same
a
one,
price on
right?
it. I guess he did put a price on it.
How many
80.
steaks can you eat, right?
Yeah,
I mean, I don't know.
exactly. All right, what do you got before we say goodbye?
Yeah, again, I'm going to say this about Crosby, though. It's circumstantial, circumstances. We had Super Agent Pat on the show. Well, I'm hoping we aired it, right?
Yeah, it's out.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Go watch our interviews with
Spoiler.
the agents.
Spoiler.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but it's always different. It's always situational with the player, situational with. We talked with Alan Walsh about Joe Drouin, right? So sometimes it's not about the number, but I get it. Guys are short careers, so you have to understand too when you are going after the money. I will never judge guys. Never have, never will. My thing about training camp, your question, I'll make it a very simple answer. I'm hoping to see because of the circumstances, talking like an agent now, circumstances of the Avalanche with Gabe and Val and all that stuff. I'm hoping to see a little bit of a ham sandwich when it comes down to the lineup. You guys know my expression, the ham sandwich. I want to see a ham sandwich lineup. Do you split up Mac and put Rantanen with Middlestat? And I want to see some of that. I want to see what can work, and I want to see where they're at in those preseason games.
Okay, gets going kind of tomorrow, Media Day. We have obviously wall-to-wall coverage coming for you, so make sure you've got notifications turned on. Make sure you got reminders set. Make sure you are liking all of our stuff. Make sure you're subscribed as well so you're not the last to the party. And make sure if you aren't already that you're a diehard, because there's going to be a ton of this content that's coming in for you. You're not going to want to miss it. We are not done with rookie camp content. We've got a few other interviews that are coming up, and then some incredible exclusives with some jaw droppers that you're absolutely going to love. So stick around with us. Make sure you're following us across all platforms, and we can't wait to bring it to you all week long as the season is getting ready to finally get going. That's it for us today. Tiff behind the camera, thank you so much for crushing it like you always do. For Rudo, for AJ, for Big E, I'm Gizmo. We will see you tomorrow.
We all silly like the mayor.